awesomely enough, I have like an update or two to do with this truck. Been busy with like the shirts and other stuff we've been getting into. So, which side is this tab on? Release. Push, yeah, there we go. Each one of these are slightly different. Someone sent me wipers for my truck because I've been complaining like a little bitch how bad my wipers are every time I drive it, and anytime I try to remember, like if I go to the store, I'm like, well, I need tranny fluid. I can't ever remember that I actually need wipers. Oh, wow. Someone had the same size. I think someone had 2 short ones on it. That's fine. But, we'll swap these wipers out. I always feel like when I go to do my wipers, I feel like I'm gonna look like that asshole that can't get his wipers on. You're like, oh, this is gonna be easy, right? And you go to do it, and you're like, this isn't as easy as I thought it was gonna be. What the hell happened? They're just wipers. This is exciting, that's for sure. I'm excited about wipers. Now we'll see how bad my windshield is. I'm gonna have to get someone to install a fucking windshield in this truck if I keep it, because it's that bad. It's just tore up from all the highway miles. Obliterated. Oh man, brand new Rain-X wipers. You're my boy, Blue. You're the real MVP. You're the best. And then Nitrous outlet. I'm wearing their shirt. I'm totally whoring it up. Those guys are awesome. They sent me the soft line and another fitting. Ooh, check that out. That's what I needed. Well, this is what I wanted, because I said it about 60 times. I was excited, if you guys couldn't tell. I was happy. I was pleased. And, you know, I was like, this soft line was really on my mind that it blew off. Because there's always something. You know, I can't ever go and just have a regular day at the dyno by myself. So let me grab a tiny wrench. 7/16 for this 3AN job. Let's put you over here. Can you see better over here? What I'm about to do? Everyone throw up yet? I'm gonna take this hard line off. There's my 28 jet. Can it focus on that? Yeah, that's a 28 jet. Stuff I had left over. And I'd like to send a bunch of this stuff back to the Nitrous outlet guys, because I just ain't using it. I gotta cut some of these. My solenoids don't need to be held in place anymore while I do this. It might be difficult to get this one out actually, because I crammed it in there. We'll see. I'll grab it with some big ass blue channel locks and try to turn that. Is the bottom of this 7/16? No, it's much smaller. Let's see if the fucking Nipex Cobras. I learned about these from, I seen AVE use them, and he was like, these are fucking beasts, and they are. And then also I seen Soundman, good old Doug Bernards, uses them too, and they are incredible. Yep, popped it right loose, no problem. Now that it's loose, we're good. So I can send that back. And then, here, shit, I lost track of it already. I'm a maniac. know what I'm doing. Where is this thread sealant? Yeah, everyone told me not to use thread sealant, but I'm not putting I'm not putting an ass load on. I'm just dabbing it, and I didn't have any issues, so I'm gonna use it again. If you hadn't figured it out, I disregard a lot of rules until they bite me in the ass. Then I learned that I can't disregard those rules. It's a proven process for me. I enjoy it at this point. No problems. Doing something the perceived wrong way and then admitting when it all goes wrong. Yep. Is this one 7/16? It's probably 1/2 inch. Oh no shit, it's 7/16. This is nice. And it gets tight fast. Probably cross-threading it. Nice shallow pipe thread. So I'm swapping out the outlet on the bottom of the big solenoid from the flare steel hardline fitting to this flared steel soft line fitting. Yep, and then I gotta size up everything else and get it out of the fucking way of everything. Alright, jet back in nicely, throw the line back on top, and we are set. Snug that guy up. Snug that guy up. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I am happy with that. That is fine with me. Everything's okay. And just to make sure this pain in the ass doesn't go anywhere, I got this guy. I will zippy and snippy. It's good. And then the other one, it doesn't look like, I mean, this stainless line is pretty hard and bent out of the way. Like it's probably never, yeah, I was gonna zip tie these together, but I don't even think I'm gonna bother. The only thing I maybe like to do is, I mean, it's not gonna blow out of the way anymore, so maybe I'll just leave it go. Yeah, we'll just leave it go. I'm happy with all that. That's it, I got my line on there. Everything else is working good. Softy installed. Ready to rock. 1-footer and a 2-footer. Double dry kit. Wipers on. Wonder what else I gotta do. I guess I gotta figure out what I gotta do. Someone is bringing me E85 to try from where they are. They have higher content ethanol. I just want to try it just for fun. He's gonna bring me like at least 82%. I'm gonna put it in and knock my average up. So I might run this thing and check a few other things and make sure it's happy. Maybe I'll do my compression tests and stuff today. Make sure everything is still good. Other than that, it has been fine. It runs and starts and everything's good still. Good oil pressure, so don't know if I'm lucky or half lucky or just totally lucky. Anyway, just wanted to get those done. Got wipers. Definitely thank you for sending wipers. And I'll put some gas in this thing tomorrow, the higher ethanol content, check some of that stuff out. And I gotta figure out what I gotta do or what I gotta put up about this for you guys, because right now I'm not sure. Oh, what I do have to do, I was running out of fuel pressure on 1100 horsepower ish, like over 830 tire. I was dropping on fuel pressure because I'm logging it. And I'm gonna put, if you guys watched my video where I go into the tank I put a thing in for 3 pumps, and I have 2 pumps. So I'm going to add the 3rd pump, like in the next week, and get that other pump installed, and go back and make sure I'm holding good fuel pressure. And then what I'm going to do, my plan is basically to wait till it warms up a little bit, and get to the track and make some passes at like 800-ish with the lockup converter, and go mid-9s, you know, get kicked out, be happy with that. And then I don't know what I want to do after that. If someone wants this thing, I would sell it and start another project. I would kind of like that. The other thing I can do is I can just lean on this till it breaks, but that seems like kind of a waste for everything is working really good. I'm really happy with it. So it would be neat if someone wants it. I feel like 800 horsepower on ethanol on this thing is like completely reliable. You can just thrash the piss out of it, not have any problems. The spray is like a bonus. Another thing I'd like to mess with at the track is if I have it long enough and it proves reliable, what I could do is put longer gears in, like 327, 308. And since I have the flexibility of both shots, I can spray it. Like if I lose, right now it is 373s on a 28-inch tire, and it's 60 foot's amazing. And I feel like if I lower my gear ratio to attain a higher mile an hour, I will sacrifice some of that ability to 60 foot so easily. Like I don't have to try very hard and it cuts a 1.5. That's really nice. Usually that's a big struggle for me in my vehicles. So what I think would be neat, what I think would be neat is if I put like the 327 in, I can set this up to sauce out of the hole and shut off on like 12 pounds of boost, and just have the turbos carry me the rest of the way, so I can still 60 foot hard without brake standing the living fuck out of this thing. So I'm interested in trying that, of course. But again, if someone throws money at me, you know, bye-bye truck. I'd like to, obviously I do this to myself. I push and I spend money and I try to figure out, is it worth spending the money? And I'm at a point now where I don't really want to spend anymore. I've learned everything I want to learn. The other pump is just annoying me right now that I need to get another pump. But everybody learns from it, and I learn from it, so that's cool. And a lot of people are like, here's a funny topic, we'll go over this. I switched to Holley just to try it. People are saying that Holley sent me a computer. That's not true. I bought this computer. Everyone thinks that like I'm fighting with Mike at EFI Source. That's also not true. We're still buddies. I'm gonna help them tune. It's not, you know, they're gonna do it too. But they asked if I would help tune a Hellcat motor with a Whipple blower on it. I posted a picture of that in the Sloppy group. So we're gonna do that. I think he wants to do that at the end of the month. We have to line that up. The other issue is everyone's like, yep. I mean, some people were joking, but some people might read too far into that joke. They go, well, you installed the Holley and now you made over 1,000 horsepower. Realistically, I'm making less power with the Holley. I sprayed it up, and then other people are also saying, well, you cheated and you sprayed it. And I mean, it's funny. Either way, I don't really care what these people have to say. I just hope they're not misinformed or they're not thinking incorrectly, because my ignition advance was off 5.5 degrees advanced. So I was running almost 6 degrees more timing in the car than it is now. So that's why it was making more power. I still think, yes, that it's down slightly, but the reason why it's making less now is because I chose to be much more conservative and then just spray it up over the 1,000 horsepower mark. Some people might think it's funny that I say the word conservative and nitrous, you know, make 830 horsepower and then spray on top of it. But honestly, I mean, the nitrous outlet guys and some other people, you can chime in the comments. I'm sure you're going to chime in no matter what. But what's cool is nitrous, it is violent, but if you stagger it incorrectly, when nitrous oxide goes in there, it's an oxidizer and it creates more oxygen. So some people might not realize this. I think I've gone over this many times, but we'll say it again. We have something to talk about now. And everybody likes to hear me rant and they learn stuff, so let's go. A 50 shot is a 50 shot on 1 atmosphere, like all motor. If you were running all motor and you jetted this for 50, you'd make approximately 50 tire if it's a good kit, or you'd make 50 flywheel. It depends on whose kit you're running and a lot of other things, but what happens is once you have a forced induction engine, supercharged, blower, you have more than one atmosphere in there, so you usually make more than what you jet for. Sometimes it's exponential. So I jetted this for 50, and the line, I want to go back and spray it again with the small shot on low boost to confirm this, because it made 90 wheel on a 50 shot, and I think it was still leaking because you can see it piss out of the other side of the fender there on the first shot. The second shot it pisses a little bit also, but here's the thing. I was spraying the one shot at 3,800 and the other shot at like close to 5,000 RPM. You can't even really hear the first shot come in. I mean, you see it spraying, like you see gray clouds, but when that fucking second shot that the line didn't come off hits, this thing goes nuts, and you can hear it. It goes wah at the end there from 5 to 6,600. It tags that second stage and goes ape shit, and it doesn't do that on the first stage. So that leads me to believe that, I mean, not all of it was going in. It was fogging the engine bay, and obviously the turbo is ingesting some of it. But for how it did not go nuts on the low shot and did go nuts on the high shot, and they were both jetted and working exactly the same, leads me to believe that it would have done even more, and that the other one was leaking the whole time. So we're past all that now. So what I would be very interested in seeing is on low boost if it still makes 90 horsepower on this small jet. So we're going to investigate that. And then also what I want to do is, now that it's, you know, reliable, I want to go back on 4 pounds and move my ignition around a lot with the higher ethanol content and see what it likes down low. And then I will have a good, you know, slope to work on my higher amount of boost. But that's again why sometimes if you have like we learned this back in the day with my buddy's supercharged Cobra. We sprayed it with like a 100 shot and it made 175 wheel. So it was almost double, and we even jetted it conservatively for a 100 shot, and it made a ton of power and torque. So that's why I wanted to do 2 stages of small, because I didn't want to hit it really hard right at peak torque or something. What I did was, you can give it an ignition advance for when it sprays. So what I did was, even though I even say this to people, hey, don't go right to a bigger shot, but not when you already have 800 horsepower. You don't want to go to a bigger shot. I crawl up people's asses when they have a stock 5.3 and they're nervous about spraying a 50 shot. I'm like, just go right to a $150, because you're only making 300 horsepower, so you're not going to fucking blow anything up. But as you can see on this, even at 460 tire with the small jet, I went right to 90 tire. So normally I wouldn't pull ignition at all, but as far as I'm making a ton of power already and I don't want to hurt it in the mid-range, I can set up a timing scale where it turns on the nitrous and pulls 4 degrees, and then it slowly ramps to -2 degrees. So it pulls a lot initially to take the shock out of the spray, and that's why you can see on the dyno chart it just keeps climbing, because it doesn't just pound it immediately, because I'm already making 800 on stock rods, bearings, pistons, everything. And a lot of it's super high mile, and it's just laughable at this point. And I didn't want to just pound it in the mid-range and hurt it, and I didn't want to try to stack 2 shots in 1,000 RPM and hit it all too quickly soon. So I was going back and forth, and my buddy Chris Ortiz, I gotta give him credit too. He said, well, why don't you just, he's like, what I like to do with big spray on top of motor, on top of turbo, is take a bunch out initially and ramp the timing back in. So that's why I kind of have a double hump on my pull, because it takes some ignition out and starts spraying, and then knocks another bunch of ignition out and starts spraying and adding the ignition back in all the way out to, like, I lifted at like 6,700 and it was just fucking climbing like a beast. So that's how I staggered everything in, and that's why I did what I did, and that's why I wanted to do 2 dry stages. I am running out of fuel pumps still. And what I've learned at this point is, at least on my dyno, these Walboro 450s, I mean, a totally safe, people argue with me endlessly, but a totally safe margin is 1 Walboro 450 through an automatic is good for like 450 tire on ethanol. 2 of them is good for like, you know, 850, because I made 830 locked and I was just dipping off on fuel pressure. And now if you have enough injector overhead and your fuel pressure keeps dropping and your injector keeps opening, you might make it to the end of the track before you blow something up. But I'd rather just hang another pump for 90 bucks, 99 bucks in the tank here, and then re-log my fuel pressure. And then what's cool is I will have a lot more fuel, and I can maybe even go for more, like 1150 or maybe 1250 to the tire. I feel like when these things break is when you're making a lot of power in the mid-range. So if I can just keep stacking power on after like 4800, like stagger both kits, run a ton of boost, keep the timing like stupid low, and just stagger it all in on a pull, I think I can make, you know, maybe over 1200, because it easily did the 11, or almost 11, sorry, 1070. I felt like that was fairly easy to attain that goal with the nitrous and everything else on top. And another thing, I got sidetracked, another neat thing about nitrous is when you're oxidizing, it's burning that nitrogen atom too, and that's kind of a buffer for the combustion process. So that helps out too. Obviously the E85 is nice. And then another neat experiment we're going into here is, everyone said my electrical tape is going to fall apart in the tank. So we'll see how it's doing after, you know, sitting in an ethanol bath that long. We'll see. Probably those guys are probably right. It's probably coming off, and it's good to reinvestigate it. And then, as you've seen with, if you've watched the mail time videos, people have sent me really nice shrink wrap, like with the glue in it and everything. So I will add the third pump, change my hanger setup slightly for the third pump, resolder everything, and shrink wrap the piss out of that stuff. So the shrink wrap should be fine in there. If not, again, I'll dig in there. What another cool thing is, my buddy Mike Hennessy at Monkey Fab sent me a wastegate ring. I want to flip both of these wastegate dump tubes up out of the hood and put this and combine them, if I can. It would be neat. I think me and Dino will do that if he has time. I honestly am not good enough to, I don't have the skills to finesse that. I mean, look at this downpipe. But anyway, I think I'm going to do an entire video on what I think of. Everyone's asking me this already, but I don't think it's been enough time yet, but I can give you a little of how I feel about MegaSquirt versus Holley. And I like them both. And what I really like about Mike's product, obviously I've known him for a while. He will implement any changes he can, and he's right here. And if you need to buy it, you can get it. I already have friends who have been waiting for Holley stuff since like November. And that's that's funny, it takes that long. And I'll admit, some of the stuff in the software is easier. And like my friend Dario said, some of it's dated. It looks like what the Holley 950 Commander did in the 90s. And I'll say that some of it's easier. Some of it's really hard. If you're coming from a MegaSquirt background, I feel like, I don't know if this is because I'm an IT guy or that I've been messing with standalones a while, but if you open up the, there's some stuff that Holley can do that MegaSquirt does great. And there's some stuff that Holley does that MegaSquirt could benefit from absolutely. And that's just both sides of the fence. And what you have to realize is this is almost double the price from like a gold box and transmission setup. Almost. And it depends, again, like what you like. People like a Jensen head unit. Other people say it sucks. You know, I'm not even up on that stuff. But like the Sony brand or the cheap one that works fine. And I'm all about figuring out if cheap stuff works and if expensive stuff is worth the expense. Some of this stuff is great. Some of it's a total pain in the ass. When you go to configure outputs, I think that setup is, it seems nice on this until you go to do a lot of stuff and then it starts to feel clunky. I'd have to open up the software and show you guys, but on MegaSquirt, like say you want to turn on nitrous stuff. Nitrous, MegaSquirt can do the same thing, control nitrous outputs independently and timing retards and all the same shit. It can do all the same things. I didn't really give or add anything. They're all the same. I just spent more money. And by spending more money, I did get like a touchscreen dash that's configurable. MegaSquirt doesn't really have that now. They may do it someday. Some people might think it's a total waste. You can load and save tunes from that. I mean, the MS3 does onboard data logging. This does onboard data logging. They all do something, you know, that the other one doesn't. Most of that, they have 80% of the same features. I think where, obviously, some people are just going to like the interface better. Some people are going to like the pin mapping better. If you open up say you want to run Nitrous and MegaSquirt. You open the Nitrous dialog. You say this. You go, Nitrous is armed when I do this, and you can choose a trigger input. And you choose one of the wires, choose the wire, hook it up, and that's your triggered input. And then you go to output, stage 1, choose an output right from a drop-down box like Nitrous number 1. There's Nitrous 1 and 2 dedicated in the harness. You choose those as your outputs, and then you close the Nitrous configuration box. You just close it, and you're done. And that's it. You set like what RPM and what TPS, and you're done. Now on this, you have to open it up. Let's raise this a little bit. I feel like I'm cutting my head off here. What you need? Let me just mute this shit right now, because that's gonna go nuts. You have to enable Nitrous control, and then you have to go through what seemingly looks simpler, and in some cases is simpler. You have to go in and enable outputs, and then it turns on pins. And then you have to tell it whether or not you want that pin to be pulse width or regular ground or positive or pulse width positive. And then you need to go into the Nitrous stuff and then select which one is stage 1 or 2. And then you need to go to the pin map, and then you need to take, if you chose a negative, you need to find a pin that's a negative and then drop it on the pin J2 or B14. And then you need to look at like a wiring diagram and find which pin is actually B14. Now for me, maybe just coming from everything else, that doesn't seem as functional. What's nice is if you screw something up, you can move some of the outputs. But you can do the same thing inside the dialog box on the MS3. So you're doing like 3 steps to do one thing, but on top of that, you can make things way more complex, but easier. You have to have the depth of knowledge and how to make this stuff work, because I was talking to a friend, and what he does is he has a button for his trans brake. So he's at like a certain limit, it's a trans brake button. And then after he starts going down the track, it switches the purpose of that button to be his scramble boost button. So that's neat because he can set 20 things for the in and out. But for the average user that wants to make it simple, that might be more difficult. So people are asking me which one I like better immediately. Like, I'm installing the wiring, and people are like, is it better? Should I buy it? And I'm like, guys, I have like 3 days, and I fucked up. I mean, I screwed it up. I chose the wrong O2 sensor from a bass tune. The bass tune that I built this one off, I mean, you have to choose something to work with, so I used one of Holley's bass tunes. Their bass tune had the NTK sensor. I had the Bosch sensor. I talked about this before. And for 3 days, I had nothing but, I could barely get this thing in and out of my garage. It wouldn't idle. I would roll into it. It would break up. I was constantly having issues. And I'm like, this is the easiest shit in the world to use, everybody says. And I'm not a total idiot. Like, I can figure out a lot on my own. What am I having? Why am I having this issue? And I sent this to a bunch of my friends that use Holley, and no one thought of the O2 sensor issue. I came up with it later. I mean, I must have sent this and asked a whole bunch of people, and we went through all sorts of things. And I did one thing at a time and looked through the entire tune, and where it said which O2 sensor to choose, it said Bosch or NTK. And I'm like, well, having the wrong O2 sensor selected might really fuck me over. And nothing on this O2 sensor says which O2 sensor it is. And since I bought this as a kit, it didn't really say in the manifest or the delivery sheet that I got a Bosch sensor. So what I did was like, well, fuck it, I'll just change it. So I changed it to the Bosch sensor, I turned the learn and the closed loop all the way up, and I fired it, and it was immediately 10 times better and fixing and seemed correct. Like, I had a good air fuel and the truck was running good. And I took it out and rolled into it, and it finally everything else was adding up. And then that's when my wastegate started creeping too, which was an after effect of fixing the rings in my motor, all of that on top of each other. But the big thing is everyone goes, which one's better? And I go, well, it's kind of like when I talk about an LS swap, because everyone's like, should I get a 6.0? Should I get a 5.3? Should I get a 4.8? Should I hold out to get a later gen rodded one? Because I'm going to make 1,000 horsepower tomorrow, and I need it, and everything needs to be reliable. And I'm like, it's the same thing tool guys say. What's the best tool? The one you have. Like, what motor should I use? the most complete one that you have. What engine management should I use? Whatever you can afford that does what you want it to do. I think a lot of people get caught up in having a million options and they buy something like this and don't even use. I mean, this thing has like 120 ins and outs. I'm not going to use anywhere near all of those, but I just wanted to try it. And it's a shame. I wish I could have done like a TH400 car. I could have bought the HP. It would have been much cheaper to get into it. I do like the touchscreen dash. One of the things I would like to bring that up with Mike. I was talking to Mike about a bunch of the differences, and Holley's all in-house, but they move slower. What's nice about what Mike does is the guy that writes the firmware, his name is James Murray, and the guy that writes Tuner Studio is Phil Tobin, and they're all easily accessible, but they're just one guy. It's not a team. But anything you have that's a good idea, they will implement. So that's what's cool about supporting the little guys. And again, I would say just get both software. It's free to get the software and the tunes, and look at it and consider, you know, what you would like to use. Doesn't make any sense. It's just like when we do the HP tuners and MegaSquirt classes, and people are like, what should I use? And I have on the wiki page like stock computer versus MegaSquirt or some other standalone, and it's based on, again, we'll loop back to what your goals are. If you're honest with yourself about your goals, you need to build yourself to that goal with engine, turbo, management, stuff that you can use. Again, like the tool that you can use is the best. So if you buy a whole bunch of shit you have no idea how to use, it's going to be difficult. You might have a really difficult time figuring out how to make shit work, what to do with it, when you have trouble, who will help you, and you just might end up with 80% frustration. And it's funny because this is supposed to be the easiest thing in the world to use, and a bass tune from Holley biffs my O2 readings, and I struggle with this thing for 3 days. And I'm like, I'm the biggest fucking idiot in the world. I can't make a Holley system work for 3 days. And nobody I knew was like, check your O2 sensor. So to me, that's a funny thing, but now I know, so that'll never happen to me again. I know. But again, that's where, you know, if I hadn't figured it out, I'd still be struggling with it, and I might have ripped it out and thrown the fucking cold box back in out of pure frustration. Because when stuff frustrates me enough, I change everything. I know people who will deal with something frustrating for way too long and waste all their money and time and never get the enjoyment out of it. So that's always in the back of my mind is I can just cut and run from all of this bullshit and not have to deal with it. At any time, I can decide that. So again, we might be getting long-winded here, but that's my initial thoughts so far. Some stuff I like about the Holley, some stuff I don't like about the Holley. The ethanol is working good. Here's another funny thing. In MegaSquirt 3, like the gold box, you turn on the ethanol sensor. You just turn it on, and that's it. You're done. You go into fuel and flex fuel and enable it and tell it which pin it's coming in on, and you're done. And it reads ethanol content. The multipliers are already set up. The ones that I ship with my bass tunes and Mike's bass tunes, it works immediately. It can see fuel temperature, everything, and it fucking works. In the Holley, you need to install an advanced config, and then you need to go into 2D tables, and you need to set up, I think in the instructions they give you it's at least 3 tables, maybe a 4th one. It's a fuel multiplier selection table you need to set up, and then you need to set up a commanded air fuel difference table, and then they have an ignition difference table where you can modify the amount of ignition added or subtracted based on ethanol content. And I'll admit it was daunting to look at. It took a little bit, and I entered everything, and it is working. But as far as documentation and everything else, it was intimidating to look at. And again, I'm not like a novice user of this stuff. I'm new to Holley, but I'm like, man, couldn't they make that easier? And then the bump box stuff in the MS3, you literally open up like trans brake and anti-lag is this giant box, and you're like, enable anti-lag on 2-step in, and then turn on my trans brake on nitrous out, and then use the data log button to be the bump box, and then you hit OK. And then you have 2 ground wires that are anti-lag and trans brake and bump, and then 1 wire that goes out to the trans brake, and you're done. And it has the adjustments for speed and RPM, and everything's all right here. Now, as far as I understand with the Holley, there's 12 different ways to do it because there's no built-in way to do it. You need to read up on it and figure out how people are doing it, and some people are using it as when they trigger the rev limiter, then you go into rev limiter options, and then you tie rev limiter and something else together as an output that's pulse width, but it pulse widths at 100%, so it turns the brake on, and then when you push another button, it strobes it to 12 volts, and then you put in 75% pulse width duty on it, so it switches it from all the way powered on to pulse widthing, and then that's what bumps you in. But there's nothing dedicated for it, and what's nice is it's all dedicated on the Gold Box. So this is where that stuff, it varies. Like, again, like some of that stuff makes no fucking sense, and it makes it difficult. And if you're struggling already, I'm dreading having to hook it up on someone's car, because if I have issues, I have to figure it out. It's not like I've done it already and I know it's supposed to work. So if we have like a funny wiring or solenoid, I probably won't be able to figure that out for a while because I just don't have the experience with the box. I mean, I know people are doing it, but there's no defined way to do it from Holley. It's just what other people are doing, and you're hoping it works out for you. So that's the majority of what I see right now. I still don't have long term on this. The transmission control and everything is good. I wish Holley and MegaSquirt would implement a better like race mode where, I mean, even a stock computer, it'll lock up part throttle and then unlock, and then there's wide open mile-an-hour lockup settings that say, like, if you're over 85% throttle, lock the converter at 115 miles an hour in whatever gear you're in. So you can drive around normally, it locks up normally, and when you floor it, it unlocks until you get pretty far into third, and then it automatically locks wide open. Now you can turn that off, turn it on, and all the base settings work the way they would normally. So you don't even have to switch anything. Now with the Gold Box transmission controller and the Holley, there's no separate setting that's like, wow, Matt's flooring the fuck out of it at the track, lock it at 110. You have to change those settings to, like, I have it set to never lock until it's in fourth, and only lock under 40% throttle and over 50 miles an hour and all of that stuff. And it behaves appropriately. But what sucks about that is when I floor it at the track, it won't lock in third. If I want it to, I need to fuck with my settings. And then when I'm driving on the road, it won't lock till I hit 115 miles an hour in third gear. You know, you have to constantly change those settings back and forth. And there's no individual dialogue exporting settings. Like, you could set up two tunes, but then if you adjust fueling on your tune that doesn't lock, you have to try to transfer it to your tune that does lock. Yeah, so, I mean, again, like, I might be shooting over most of your heads, and that's fine. And a lot of you might be like, well, yeah, I mean, there's all ups and downs. And, I mean, the really big up and down is the price point to jump into a Gold Box that can do all of this is like $900 with a wiring harness. That's when you have to terminate yourself. Then they sell a plug-and-play kit like what Mark has in his race car, or he has a Power Glide, or my buddy Ackerman. It's like $12.50 shipped with a plug-and-play LS harness, and you just plug it in, a load of bass tune, and go. And then some people get intimidated by the software. You know, it's all up and down from there. So if you guys have questions about which I prefer, I mean, I think they're both really good. One is more expensive and it has more features because it costs more. And then I was talking to Mike about this, and I'm like, hey Mike, why don't you just add a few things and build like an MS4 and add a few things? And the issue is people don't even use all of the capabilities of the Gold Box without complaining it doesn't have 120 ins and outs. But they're not even using all of the ins and outs available. So where is the gain for Mike to completely develop something that has the insane amount of ins and outs that you're not going to use and not going to buy, and he has to manufacture and then has to charge you more to where it closes in on what this costs? You know, he's infringing on a market. I mean, obviously the Holley market is huge, and people just buy it because it's Holley. Some of them don't even like it. They just use it because they think that's their only option. They don't even know that other options exist. So it's really all over the place with stuff like that. So, like I said, just buy what you think makes sense and works and looks good and whatnot. I mean, we have cars going. We put 2 cars into the 7s with an MS3 box, and I don't know anybody really running Holley on really fast cars. I think most of them are running like Fuel Tech and stuff like that now, which I have zero experience with also. Yeah, anyway, I mean, it's funny that people, Mike told me people were calling EFI Source and going, oh, you guys fighting, or is Matt no longer your cut? Like, everyone thinks that I'm sponsored by Holley or EFI Source, or the truth is I'm not sponsored by anybody other than Nitrous Outlet sponsored me. Check out this fucking sweet shirt. They gave me a Nitrous kit and were like, put this shit on, have fun, and tell people if you like it. I like it. It helped me crack the 1,000 horsepower barrier. Those guys are nice as hell. Chris at Nitrous Outlet, call me and be like, let me know if there's anything you need or whatever you have trouble with. Or those guys are cool as hell. I'm happy that they asked me to see if I could try it. I'm happy that I tried it. I'm going to keep using it. My relationship with Mike is, I asked him, I had like the MegaSquirt, and I was like, hey, would you make changes in your production line for MegaSquirt for me so we can enable like people to put them in LS motors easier? And he was all for it, and he changed the production and added the resistors, and we did all R&D. And what happened was he started to give me stuff to test, and then I would test it and write bass tunes, and as a favor for him giving me stuff to try and see if it works at no cost, I would develop bass tunes that he can give to people so they can use it so people aren't as far in the dark. And that has been our relationship for years now. He gives me stuff to try because he knows I will test it, I will get it running, and then I will let him know what's good or bad, and we will chase down an issue, and that I can help support people with what I find. So if he has trouble, a bunch of times people had issues with their gold box. And he had 1 or 2 come back to him, and they could not find an issue with the box. And the guy's like, it's the fucking box, I don't even want it. You know, people would argue with Mike. And he's like, well, let's take all this into consideration. Sure, it might be. So he would send it to me. I would plug it into my truck, load my truck tune, and I would start it and drive it around for 3 days. And I would be like, I don't have any issues. So there's something else mechanically wrong or wiring wrong with this other gentleman's setup. And I mean, I would do that for Mike, and Mike helps me out. So that's really all it is. It's fairly simple. It's a pretty simple relationship. It's not complicated at all. He doesn't pay me. I don't get kickbacks for him selling. If he sells 0 in a month, he doesn't yell at me. If he sells 100,000 in a month, you know, he'd probably be like, I don't even know if he would tell me. He'd just be like, I'm doing good. You know, I don't get kickbacks. I just get to play with what he develops, and I like that relationship. It's cool. I'm happy with that. Some people might be thinking, you know, that's dumb, or I deserve more, but I'm totally happy with what we do. He helps me, I help him. We're just friends. I like what he does. He builds everything in-house. We go fast with it. I mean, what else is there to say? Other than that, I don't legally race anywhere, so I don't know if Holley would have any interest in me anyway. I think it's cool that Nitrous Outlet reached out to me knowing what a hack job I am, and they still wanted to give me stuff to use, and I completely used it incorrectly, and they're like, that's cool, whatever. You're a funny guy. So, man, I talked a lot about a lot of stuff, so if you have any other questions, you can write them in the comments. And I'm still, honestly, I think I just want to, I'm going to go back on low boost and play with the nitrous a little bit, because I feel like there's research to be learned there since the other line came off. I want to mess with that, and then, you know, we'll move ignition around, we'll play with the small shots, we'll line those back up, and then I can talk to you guys a little bit about how it works if you're interested, how I have it wired, or, I mean, I think I said it when I did the installation videos and I set up the software. Yeah, dyno a couple times. I'm not going to go for 1,300 horsepower realistically anytime soon. I would like to make a track pass, if they'll even let me race wherever I go. I'd like to, I really, like, if I can line this thing up and go 9.6, I'm done. I don't want to, I'm not going to hassle them. I will be very pleased with that. This is this truck is heavier than my other Fairmont, so the fact that I drove it there and went a 950 and drove home would be incredible. I would be extremely happy with that. Any faster than that would be hilarious. I don't have a big interest in blowing it up going down the track. One thing I might do is, because I would need much longer gearing to, I mean, a mid 9 I'm going to be running out of gear. What would be really neat is to spray it hard to the 8th and quit and get a good 8th mile time. That would be cool, but I don't think this thing is going to last. People, I mean, don't think that I'm unrealistic. I don't think this is going to last much past the 8th mile on kill. It's a lot of weight, it's a lot of power, and yes, the strain on the dyno is nothing near what it is on the street, but I'm still happy with the horsepower figure. I still learned a lot. I learned that my fuel pressure is still dropping off. It would have been quite a different lesson to learn that my fuel pressure was dropping off while I'm blasting it on 78 or down someone's racetrack and blow it all to fucking smithereens. That could hurt. It could be a cataclysmic event for me to have an engine failure at 100 some miles an hour. So anyway, those are like all the updates for that. I would love to go like a super high 5 at the track in the 8th and go home and laugh about it, and then people immediately would be like, run it out the back, it won't last, blah blah blah. And I mean, I just don't need that kind of negativity in my life. I'm pretty happy with what I do, and I set goals for myself, and I will work hard, and most of the time I'll reach them, and then I'll share whatever I found out. A lot of it is contradictory to what you might read or learn anywhere else. Some of it might be flat out wrong, and I don't really care. I always preface and say, hey, it works for me, I'm not a professional. So this was quite a long talk about a lot of bullshit. Again, if you have questions about any of this stuff, I'll do my best to answer it. We'll see how long this fucking video is. How long have I been going? It doesn't even say. It says, Matt, you've been talking too long, but I haven't uploaded in a couple days, I saw, so I hope this clears up a lot of just back and forth questions I've been getting from people about like sponsorships and Holley and what I get for free and what I don't get for free and how the truck isn't gonna last a day and all of that shit. So that is a giant update. I hope you can even withstand listening to all of this shit. So that's where I'm at. Have a good one. And the mail time video is going up today also, so enjoy that stuff, and I'll hopefully be working on some other projects soon when it fucking warms up and I don't have to deal with this cold.